The legal basis now are, aside from the Constitution, so we have the Data Privacy Act and several issuances or regulations issued by the National Privacy Commission, and as well as existing jurisprudence or case laws decided by the Supreme Court. But that's in the concept of a general privacy issue, not particularly data privacy. Well, all individuals have a right to privacy, data privacy, um, whether they are minor or not. The ones that are exempted or not covered by the data privacy are the juridical persons. Those are companies, persons by legal fiction. So under the law, they're considered persons, but actually they're not, the human beings, like partnership corporations, government agencies. So they're not covered. So their information are not protected by the Data Privacy Act. But for individuals, regardless of age, they are protected. No, they are what we call the data subject. The Data Privacy Act, if you read it, there's nothing about it. No, nothing about who will give consent for minors, and also a question of can we actually process or collect information of minors, no, personal information of minors. It's actually quiet, no, and even existing regulations are quiet on that. But we have a general rule in civil law, in our civil code that in terms of minors, when you're requiring the consent of minors, you have to get the consent of their parents. So that's why in our case for minors, we usually advise if it's my information of minors that you want to collect, then you have to get the consent of their parents. The language that you can get from the Data Privacy Act that will support that is a provision allowing representatives to give consent for data subjects. So in this case, the automatic guardian or representative of a minor under our law is, of course, the parents. When people start compiling personal information and try to sell them to third parties, and those third parties, you don't know how they use the personal information. They might be using it for studies, valid or legitimate studies, that they may actually use it also for something which is not good, right? For harassment or marketing or identity theft. So I think for parents, they should, given this pandemic, that where students actually now have direct access to the internet because they have no choice. They have to do online studies, and you cannot, of course, always monitor your kids doing online studies. And while doing this online schooling, they are actually exposed also to how to use the internet because that's part of their education, right? Sometimes they'll be asked to use Google or to use YouTube, to use whatever other applications, and in the process they learn how to navigate the internet and probably how to supply their personal information for purposes of registration with, for example, with a particular website or a particular product. And even I think even some students now or kids are aware of ordering ordering products, right? Or delivering contacting delivery platforms to deliver certain products to them. So those are openings for possible acquisition by third parties of personal information of children, which then of course can be used in a good way or in a wrong way. So we should be concerned about that. There's an accompanying obligation on their part to ensure that this will not be used inappropriately, especially the personal information that might be transmitted through these platforms or accounts. I'm aware that big companies, tech companies like Google, Facebook, etc. They have features, and they do practice data privacy protection of parents, so that children will not be lured into giving personal information to be used inappropriately. And of course, given that they are children, they should be, in a way, they should be helped or assisted by their parents to ensure, or at least the parents should be able to manage their account to ensure that that they are not disclosing, unnecessarily their personal information. Number one, do do they think it's really necessary to publish, for example, the personal information? No, because you can publish a work without actually disclosing the person, right? The name, the exact name, or even the picture of that person or the video. So that's something that they should think about. Whether is it really necessary? And then, of course, some control as to the audience. Are you publishing it to everybody or just to those, for example, a particular group? Probably just the students, for example, of that school, or whoever, just the parents of that, enrolled parents in a certain account. So I think those things should be taken into account. Not to the extent possible, it's not advisable to publish personal information of children to the general public. No, but of course, if the parents themselves are the ones asking for that, so they have control over their, their children, their personal information. So it's their call, if they want, because some, of course, we know that some parents might be, too proud of their children, might want their children to be known, through these things that they do, their talents, etc. So it's their call. If there are negative results arising from that or impact, then it's probably something that they have to deal with later on. But of course, law will be there to protect whatever violations may be, committed. But again, each time you make your personal information public, then you're actually taking risk, that might be used negatively or inappropriately. I think in the case of the of an online classes where teachers or other students are able to see the background, what's happening in somebody else's or their classmates house or room, actually it's not a form of a data privacy breach, but rather inappropriate disclosure of information, visual information in particular, or it can be whatever. They hear something, so it's also audio. So it's not really a breach, but it's an inappropriate disclosure. But then the disclosure can be, in that case, if known, if known to the persons, to the student whose background or environment is being viewed, it may be with the consent of that student. So therefore, it's also not a violation of that student's right. But then if it's something that is required of that student, then that student may actually, object. Students, as well as other data subjects, whether minor or not, they have the right to object, to collection of their personal information, So personal information kasi in reality is a very broad concept, anything actually that will be able to be connected to a particular person or individual. So it doesn't have to be your name lang, your address, your telephone number. It can be your hobbies, can be what the things that you want to watch or to hear the music, or your house, or how your room looks like, your parents, etc., their pictures. So those things. So in this case, I think the students or the parents of the students, if they believe it's make having the video turned on during their classes might be might be intruding into their privacy, so they may either request the teachers not to require it, or to allow them to use virtual backgrounds, to prevent exposure of persons or environment in their room or their houses. So I think that's how to deal with that with that concern. So at a certain point, parents or students, if they're old enough, should know that they also have the right to to prevent a disclosure of their personal information if they think it's not proper. Information about data privacy is quite something that you really have to to particularly focus if you want to know it from from public sources. But I think from the point of view of school administrators, I think they should, we have those parent teachers conferences or seminars. Even the situation now where online learning or schooling is becoming prevalent, or it's now prevalent. So I think that's something that school administrators should consider, conducting seminars or talks with the parents on their rights, no? Because sometimes the problem is, of course, parents are not aware. So I mean, they're not sophisticated. Probably most of our parents are not sophisticated, so they're not aware of the existence of this privacy right that their children have, or even them have. So I think that's something that should be made available. That information should be made available to them, and they should be informed of what they can allow and can't allow, or they have a choice to allow or not to allow. So I think the best thing to do it is to to do some seminars or talks with these parents. We probably part of their orientation about this online learning process, and should be, of course, made very easy for them, in the sense that it should be, whoever is doing that, conducting that, should give them examples, yung everyday things that they do that might actually be considered as an example of them actually disclosing personal information. Well, my advice is very simple. I think we should know, or we should inform our children that they are not sharing their personal information online. If they do, they should ask us first, no, as parents, no, they should ask us first. If they, well, I guess we have to tell them, if a particular platform or program in your laptop or in your computer or your phone is asking you for your age, asking you for your name, for your email address, don't give it. Ask us first, no? So, and sometimes, in my case, if I open an account for my child, for example, I control the password, and I have access. For example, if it's an email account, I have access to it through my own device. So after all, accounts can be registered in several devices, so that you're able to monitor. No, you're able to monitor their the emails that they're receiving or that they're sending, so things like that. And then, of course, we have they should also consider using the parental tools offered by various media. No, for example, YouTube has a parental controls. If they're using Netflix, for example, or Google, they have parental controls, so they should take advantage of those controls, no, especially for kids, no. The regulator natin for data privacy is just the NPC. So if it's really a data privacy issue, it should be filed or lodged with the NPC, either for information purposes or for complaint purposes, so that the NPC can act on it. So NPC also conducts hearings in case of complaints. Now, sometimes the violation of data privacy may actually be involved in another violation. No, for example, it can also amount to bullying. For example, the third party is able to get the email address or phone number of their children, and then they start calling them, harassing them, etc. So it can also be bullying, right? So that's a separate law, and that is enforced by the police or by the office of the prosecutor. So you can also file a complaint with the police or the office of the prosecutor. Of course, if it's in a school setting, you can also use the facilities of the school. The school also handles grievances, right, among students or parents in connection with their studies or events happening in a school. So you can also avail of those venues. So, but if it's purely data privacy, it's really under the law. It's really the NPC. Now we have government agencies making this information public and easier to digest, so they can always access the National Privacy Commission website. So it's a good website, so they can get more information about data privacy, so that they can protect also their rights. Yeah. I think for all the data subjects, so these are all individuals, I think they should try to know their rights. No, these are new rights granted by our law, the Data Privacy Act. So the basic thing here is for people to know their rights under that law, because without knowledge of that rights, they probably not be able to exercise them or know that something a violation is happening. So it's also incumbent upon all individuals, I believe, for them to know, no, to know those rights.